Stay tuned for the lesson. Hello. I'm back. And it's Tariq B for the people who are new here and for the people who are coming back. Welcome back. I'm back again with another YouTube video, and in this video it's titled Black People in Hollywood. If you guys haven't seen my last video, it was about the injustices of black men and the criminal justice system and in society, how society tends to view black men who commit crimes and get into gang violence and versus white men who get into shooting up schools and the biases between the two. You guys should go check out that video. It is very informative and it gets deep. It gets very deep and it's very sad. But we're back again with another video, and this video is also about race, specifically black people, and the history of black people in Hollywood, and how Hollywood has been basically promoting an image of black people since the beginning of time, since the beginning of Hollywood. And nowadays, those racist stereotypes that white people used to perform as, that has now evolved into black people doing it to ourselves. But we're going to get into how that happens. So, yeah. So, if you guys have either heard of it, but probably haven't done your research on it, or the people who haven't heard of it, I'm sure you guys have heard of blackface. Blackface and minstrel shows was the first form of entertainment in the Hollywood industry in America. If you guys did not know that, blackface and minstrel shows was the first form of entertainment in America. The first form of entertainment. White people first thought was to make fun of black people. Can somebody play Mariah Carey obsessed? But anyway, blackface performances began in 1830 when actor Jim Rice began performing in Pittsburgh as a character called Jim Crow. Jim Crow used shoe polish and burr cork to darken his skin. The characters took a firm hold on the American imagination that audience expected any person with dark skin, no matter what their background, to conform to one or more of the stereotypes. Anytime that they saw African American, they immediately thought that they were going to be lazy, ignorant, needed to be tamed, some type of Jezebel stereotype. Blackface performances and minstrel shows. Minstrel show entertainment included imitating black music and dance and speaking in a plantation dialect. The shows feature a varied of jokes, songs, and dances and skits that were based on the ugliest stereotypes of African American slaves. From 1840 to 1890, minstrel shows were the most popular form of entertainment in America. From 1850 to 1870, minstrels were at its height. And in the 1850s, 10 theaters in New York City alone were devoted to almost solely minstrel entertainment. That was the popular entertainment. Imitating black people and creating ugly stereotypes of African Americans was the number one entertainment at one point. Basically, still is nowadays. After 1870, the popularity of minstrel shows declined rapidly. In the 1919, only three troops remained in the US. However, minstrel shows acts continued to be depicted in the cinema and on television well into the 1950s. Blackface and minstrel shows was setting the norm for what kind of roles African Americans were allowed to play, which still plays into our society to this day. 2025 it hasn't gone away. It just has evolved to what we see now. Now, black actors was a thing during this time, during the early stages of Hollywood. But white audiences in the 19th century wouldn't allow real black entertainers on stage unless they performed in blackface makeup. And one of the first blacks to perform in blackface for white audiences was a man who invented tap dancing, William Henry Lane, aka Master Juba. Lane's talent and skill were extraordinary, and eventually he became famous enough that he was able to perform in his own skin. Did you guys know when blacks began to work as minstrels in the mid 1840s, becoming established as performers by the 1860s, their contributions ironically did little to alter the tradition. It did little. It didn't open up better doors for African American performers. Indeed, it only reinforced the black stereotypes already ingrained in both the theater and in the society. Blacks were able to participate in minstrel shows only by declaring themselves as quote unquote real coons. And black sellout roles would continue to be the norm into the early 19th century all the way to the 60s, but we're going to get into that. Blackface was then merged into sellout roles for African American actors who would play characters that are blackface stereotypes, but just played by black people. Black people were mostly given roles such as subservient maids, butlers, slaves, and sharecroppers in movies with regression, racist messages. Actors like Hattie McDaniels for her role as the Mammy in Gone with the Wind, 1939. She won the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actress. There had never been an African American who had ever won an Academy Award prior to that. She was the first African American and the first African American woman to win an Academy Award. We can give her a little bit of an applaud, but during the time, black people and the black viewers didn't like that. They were not happy about that, calling her all kinds of sellout. We might do like a little video of early Hollywood African American actors, but Hattie McDaniel was not loved by black viewers. And let's get into, if you guys never heard, Lincoln Perry, aka Stephen Fetchit. Stephen played a comic relief role in a number of films, all based on his character known as the laziest man in the world. Stephen Fitcher would become Hollywood's first black millionaire, and he would appear in 54 films between 1925 and 1976. It would earn a star on Hollywood's Walk of Fame. He was pretty big back in the day, and he was a businessman. He would negotiate deals. He would walk into that room and tell those um white producers and directors that, hey, I'm bringing all this money into the studio. I deserve to get paid more. And if you guys aren't going to pay me more, then my lawyer says I don't have to work here. And you know what they would do? They will cut that check. He would pull up to the studio in expensive cars, trying to be flashy. He had it. He had it. He was the first black millionaire. He was the first black actor millionaire, and he had it. However, his popularity in finances diminished as the character he played became less appealing to the black audiences, and there was a new wave of black actors who didn't want to play roles that blatantly made African Americans look ignorant. Stephen wasn't going for this. He faced a lot of backlash from the civil rights leaders in the NAACP, and Stephen did not think twice about clapping back at them. Stephen had a lot of things to say about the black revolutionaries like Martin Luther King. He was not going for the new roles that were being offered for African Americans. However, the roles were not the they were far from good roles for African Americans, but they weren't the same kind of image that was being pushed out there in his time. He felt like he was being forgotten and disrespected because he felt like he's the one that opened up the door for all of these African Americans to have the roles that they were having, but he was getting paid dust. He was getting disrespected. He didn't express that in a positive way. He didn't express that in a way that like people could have felt bad for him, but he wanted war. He didn't want solidarity. He wanted war. He felt like white people shouldn't be giving black people equal opportunities in good roles because he felt like black people was gonna trade on them, turn on them, and that's something quote he would have never did. He also felt like African Americans blame white people for everything, and his career would really be sealed after the interview by Bill Cosby stating the tradition of the lazy, stupid, chicken stealing idiot was popularized by Lincoln Perry. They then showed a bunch of embarrassing clips and pictures of Lincoln Perry, and the backlash was heavy for Lincoln, and his career would never come back for this. Sadly, he would pass away, and that man wouldn't die. I, all I'm gonna say is give those people some grace, okay? Those people had to do what they had to do for their time, and it was a different time back in the day. They didn't have we don't have the barriers that our ancestors had on us. So ultimately, he did open doors for other African Americans. Although initially the roles that we were playing were not good for us, no way, shape, or form. Now let's get into race films. The premiere of Birth of a Nation in 1915 marked a change in the emphasis from the pretentious and inept Jim Crow stereotypes to that of the savage Negro. In D.W. Griffin's film, the Ku Klux Klan rescues the South and Southern women in particular from savage blacks who have gained power over whites with the help of the Northern Carpetbaggers. Griffin later admitted that his film was designed to create a feeling of abhorrence in white people, especially white women against colored men. That film was like just batshit crazy when it was released. The way that if they didn't already view black men as ignorant and savages and animalistic, once that film was released, it just furthermore filled that hatred that white people had for black men. It just furthermore viewed black men as they needed to be tamed, justifying their crimes and the lynching that was happening during that time. Now, Northern blacks responded to Birth of a Nation by producing their own movies, quote unquote race movies, were all black affairs that were made for black audiences. The most successful black film producer of the first half of the 20th century was a former railway porter and novelist named Oscar Michel. His Chicago-based his Chicago-based Michel Corporation, which operated from 1918 to 1940, produced over 44 films. Michel's most important film was, quote, Within Our Gates, when I quote, which was produced in 1920, an uncompromising look at racial attitudes and prejudice among both blacks and whites, and it included both rape and lynching. Between 1915 and 1948, more than 150 independent companies produced and distributed black cast movies or race films, which offer an array of stories and roles for black actors and were aimed at black audiences. Black owned Black owned production companies made melodramas, western, comedies, and adventure films and more. Sadly, the growth of truly independent black film productions was cut short by the Great Depression and added costs associated with the change in technology from silent to sound. Few of the small independent black film companies survived the changes, and even fewer remained independent once Hollywood stepped in and took control of black filmmaking by providing the finances. Race movies then changed from organic black entertainment to knockoffs of standards Hollywood fare, like westerns, crime dramas, and musicals, but featuring an all black cast. Now let's get into the rise of Hollywood and the fall off of black independent studios. Hollywood's dominance in the film industry had a negative impact on independent black film production in several ways. One key factor is a lack of representation and opportunities for black filmmakers within the Hollywood system. Hollywood focus on big budget blockbusters and commercial success often marginalizes smaller independent films, including those made by black filmmakers. This can make it difficult for independent black films to be secured funding, distribution, and recognition compared to mainstream Hollywood productions. The influence of Hollywood styles and storytelling conventions can also affect independent black filmmaking. Some argue that Hollywood's limited portrayal of black characters and stories can create a homogenized view of black experiences, making it challenging for independent black filmmakers to explore diverse narratives and perspectives. When integration became a federal law in the 1950s, it put small black theaters out of businesses, and that brought an end to production of race movies. Blacks would continue to play servant roles in mainstream movies, but the only blacks to appear in early television were those who performed racist characters. Popular radio shows like Amos and Andy and Beulah were an instant success on television. But it wasn't long before a backlash developed from black leaders who objected to the racist stereotypes, especially the fact that they were the only portrayals of blacks on TV. And when integration happened and black theaters faced a lot of challenges that led to the downfall of black theaters. With desegregation, black theaters had to compete with established white theaters for audiences and resources. Many black theaters struggle to survive in the face of this increased competition. Integration sometimes led to a shift in priorities for black theaters, with greater emphasis placed on catering to new audiences. This resulted in a loss of focus on telling stories that were specifically relevant to Black communities and celebrating Black culture. Integration often meant that Black theaters had to operate in more of a challenging economic environment with limited access to funding and resources. This made it harder for Black theaters to stay afloat financially and maintain their artistic programs. Now, as we get into the 1970s, I'm sure you guys all heard of black exploitation films. I remember being just like even 5, 10 years ago, where I view black exploitation films as progress in a positive image for black people. I thought that this was the way that we should be nowadays. But my dad informed me that those was another way that Hollywood exploited black people. After the death of Martin Luther King, the FBI labeled him as the most dangerous man to society. How was that? He was a peaceful guy. He was the one that white people loved and wanted to latch onto us. They wanted to promote Martin Luther King because he was the more peaceful one, but we're not even going to get into that. They knew after he came out back from Africa that he wasn't a different man. He was a different man. So they had to assassinate him. They wanted to make sure that after Martin Luther King was gone, that there was never going to be another black man that was going to take his spot. So in 10 years after that, they had to portray all black men as thugs, pimps, crooks, and they knew that the black film watchers who watched that shit was going to act like that. The 1970s saw a resurgence of movies tailored to black audiences in a genre called black exploitation films. Sweet Sweetback's Badass Song 1971 starred Melvin Van Peebles, who also wrote, produced, and directed the film. And in the film, his character is a black prostitute who is forced to go on the run after he saves a young Black Panther who was beaten by two corrupt white cops. The film is often credited with the invention of the black exploitation genre because its success proved that there was a lucrative market for such films. The film cost only $150,000, most of it put up by Pebbles, and grossed over $15 million in the box office. Now, films like Superfly, Shaft, Blackula, Black Caesar, Hell Up in Harlem, and Foxy Brown, and many others quickly followed. Most blaxploitation films were small, independent productions that dealt with crime and the effects of illegal drugs on the inner cities. The cause was usually portrayed as being a result of white racism and exploitation of poor blacks. Most white cops and politicians were portrayed as corrupt, forcing black anti-heroes to take matters into their own hands. Heavy on graphic sex scenes, gratuitous nudity, and violence, as well as stereotypes of pimps, whores, and black criminals. The films eventually generated a backlash led by black leaders that put an end to black exploitation films by the 80s. Black exploitation films would receive a lot of backlash from corporations like the NAACP and black viewers who didn't like the portrayal of African Americans and the roles that black actors were given. They felt like it was still the same as the roles that African Americans have been given in the past, being exploited, being told false stories and narratives about our culture. However, they still had more freedom than they did in the past. So after this resurgence of black exploitation films, the government had to quiet down the backlash. So after the black exploitation films ended, the government had to put out more TV shows and portray African Americans as normal working class people. More diverse roles were given, but this depiction of African Americans would soon come to an end with the rise of hip hop in this culture. Now, the Black New Wave, this informal term describes the films made by black filmmakers in the late 1980s and in the 90s, and it would carry on into the early 2000s. Spike Lee's She's Gotta Have It, 1986, is considered the beginning of this period. Other notable films include John Singleton's Boys in the Hood, which launched the careers of Ice Cube, Nia Long, and Cuba Gooding Jr. Hood films, a new genre of black films that left a lasting impression on a generation. Representing the portrayal of Black people in the 80s and the 90s expanded their identity, with characters having more diverse personalities. They were allowed to play roles that wasn't conforming into a stereotype, something that wasn't being done by the white man. Like, Black people were able to play better roles. They were seen as more normal, you know? But Black sitcoms with predominantly Black casts would become popular up until the end of the 2000s, sadly, when companies like UPN partnered with Warner Bros. And created CW Network, and a lot of budgets were cut for Black sitcoms. CW wanted a broader audience, aka a white audience, which put it into these Black sitcoms. Just like when Hollywood became a thing and when integration became a thing, and it put it into a lot of Black theaters. Just like when Hollywood became a thing, it put it into Black film studios because they wanted a broader audience. And who's budgeting these films? Hollywood. So they had to either sell out and go under Hollywood's wing, or you're gonna fall. You're not gonna get any budget. You're not gonna get any recognition. It's always we want the broader audience. They just want a white audience, honestly. So, like I said in the beginning of this video, these Black stereotypes and these caricature roles that Black people have been playing have just evolved into what we see now. Nowadays, we got a sexy red, we got a Gucci Mane, we got an NBA young boy, we got a Little Dirt, we got a Cardi B, we got a just I can just go on and on. It's even outside of these artists. It's movie roles that Black people are supposed to play, Black women are supposed to play. It's all some kind of modern day minstrel performer. We got ignorant men like Kai Sinet selling out his people, acting like a dumbass. I Show Speed. They get paid to act like dumbasses and to influence young men to act like that. I remember being in the 2010s. 2015 was King Batch's year because of how much white people loved him and how much he played into Black stereotypes. Because Black people, we ain't really fuck with King Batch. We ain't really fuck with King Batch like that, but white people loved him because he portrayed an image of Black people that white people want to see from Black people, not what we want to see of ourselves. African Americans have basically been finding their place in America since the beginning of time. And the whole Black culture thing is basically a made up term because it's mostly revolved around Blacks doing things that we feel like we should be doing just based off of our skin. And you know how to keep the Black man from taking the white jobs? Make him ignorant and have dangerous influences. The white man doesn't want the Black man to be in their spaces. After it was a law where they had to start hiring people from different ethnicities and groups, they had to find a way to keep Black men at the bottom of the barrel, Black people at the bottom of the barrel, by giving them dangerous influences. Now, the government, after trying to ban rap, got a hold of rap and decided that they could use this as a tool in order to influence the youth to act ignorant, just like a dumbass, because that's what us quote unquote Blacks are supposed to be doing. We can even go deeper into that. A lot of these label record owners be owning these private prisons, and how do you get money off of your prisons? How do you get how they making how do you think that these label records and these private prison owners make their money off of people getting sentenced to jail, off of people going to these prisons? So how do they do that? They find a young, attractive, poor Black man, pay him millions of dollars to act like a dumbass so that the people who watch him will want to do the same shit that he's doing, sell drugs, commit crimes. You know what I mean? And this shit is working because how many times have you seen a non-Black person sagging their pants and behaving ignorant, talking ignorant, and you hear a person say they're acting Black? How many times have I been in school where I had to correct a Black person? Anytime that they seen a white person act ignorant, sagging their pants, not knowing how to fucking talk properly, they say, oh, they want to be Black so bad. I bet those white people probably just sit up there and laugh at us every time we say that shit. That is the power of white supremacy. Now, these rappers are getting played blindly and are basically high priced puppets. After the NWA released Fuck the Police, there became an increasing rate of violence against the police. This shows us how music is not a reflection of reality, it shapes reality. Because if you can't physically control somebody, you control them through entertainment, you control them through the music, you control them through music, you hypnotize them into what should be normalized in our society. That's the power of propaganda. Okay. Majority of people who are white that listen to these rappers, they view that shit as entertainment. But however, for African Americans, for these young black men, it's the way of life. That's what they feel like they should do. They feel like the only way that they can make it out and become successful is by being a trapper, being a rapper, selling drugs, robbing. So, like I said, blackface and minstrel shows, they didn't go away. They evolved into modern media where black actors, black artists, and black influencers are being paid millions to act like puppets and to act ignorant and perpetuate black characters for the white audience and to influence younger black children to behave that way. I can't believe that content creators like King Batch had such a major platform and he just heavily based his content on and videos of black stereotypes, and most of his viewers were white. People love to hype up Vine and say that Vine was so funny. However, when I was on Vine, I remember Vine. Vine, I feel like I was on a different side of Vine. Vine was racist as hell. That's all I'm gonna say. Vine was always a little weird. It was a lot of racists that was contributing into their own stereotypes. You had Muslims playing Muslim stereotypes, Asians playing Asian stereotypes, white people even playing their stereotypes. But the difference between a black stereotype is our stereotypes have been made up against us off of things that has been put on us since the beginning of Hollywood's time. Our shit has been put on us. It's not about our stereotypes are not who we are. It's about who we feel like we should be. People consider I don't see why they consider it to be so nostalgic, but it just perpetuating negative stereotypes of black people. And again, now we have content creators like I Show Speed, Kai Sinet, who are one of the top streamers on the app Twitch, and their content is modern day minstrel shows. Black characters acting ignorantly and can't control their emotions. And that's what influences the youth nowadays. America Minstrel Shows is a dangerous tool that is used to keep black people at the bottom of the barrel. Make them stay ignorant so that they'll never take a white job or become educated because I feel like, and a lot of other people feel like this, because if you look at through history, I just feel like there's this fear that if all blacks educated and united once and for all, they'll get the whites back for slavery. That's just paranoia and guilt that I feel like white people have, and it's also insecurity in how much they truly feel like they're superior to this country. But these lost and ignorant black rappers get paid by whites to perform a black made up stereotype. When white people and other people see this, they think that it's just so funny, but we think that that's just who we are. You know, black men are not allowed to express their interests in other career paths, or they'll face scrutiny from other brainwashed black people who believe that that's not what black people are supposed to do. Anytime you see a black person speaking proper, they get told that they're speaking white. That is still a big thing nowadays. They don't see there's not a lot of positive role models for family members who have been affected generationally from American systemic oppression of black people. There's not that many role models for them, so they're just going off of what they see. People from other countries are going off what they see of black people. So I just want to give people who want to say shit like, oh, black people just love to glorify violence. Rap music is like a dangerous tool to African Americans, and black people love to perpetuate that shit. We just love violence and we love to glorify it. I just kind of give y'all a history lesson on where all that shit came from. Now, I'm going to just say this to black people. We are in 2025. We cannot go into the 2030s, the 2040s, and the 50s with the same type of mindset that, oh, it's the white man that's doing it to us. Because nowadays, we do not have the same restrictions that our ancestors did. We don't. So we can support each other way more than our ancestors could because there's resources out there. We have black owned businesses, we have black owned corporations, we got bullshit like Zeus Network, now it has TV. Those are black owned companies. However, they're using our companies to exploit those young black people who come from these low income areas. They exploit them and make them basically sell their soul for some momentarily clout and money. They want to say, oh, at least we're getting paid. Yeah, momentarily. Because once all that clout and all that money goes away that they're giving you, guess what? Guess what's still gonna be there? Your fucked up image, all the damages that's to your mental health and your physical health. You're not like it's very sad. It's very sad. Black people, we have to. I'm not gonna say we had to unite because there's been so many times where we have, and white people have always done shit like burn our cities down, burn our churches down, burn our corporations down, take over our corporations and our businesses. But we gotta always realize that it's always a new day. We have to really start demanding that respect because we built this country up. We shape Hollywood into what it is now. We set the norm, but we don't reap the benefits off of any of that shit. And we allow it. We allow it. We know we're aware of the Hollywood schemes. We're aware that these white artists make millions and they get clout off of tapping into our shit, our music that was started by us, but we allow it. We can't be comfortable on a plantation. Now that's all for this video. I don't want to I'm gonna do more topics on what I was kind of getting into. But thank you guys for watching this video. Please make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. And I will be back. I'm not really sure what my next video would be, but of course it's gonna be another top. It's gonna be another topic that's related to this about racial justice. And just make sure that you guys stay tuned. Share this video with friends and really look deeply into what I said and do your own research. Do your own research. If you disagree with what I said, do your own research. But yeah, I'll see you guys later. Adios. It's Tariq B. Have a good one and be good.